A boy, curious and thoughtful, is born with a seizure disorder. He loses his mother at the age of 15 and 2 years later, his father. He is sent to Military Engineering Academy, practices engineering for a time, and then is arrested at the age of 28 for discussing books critical of the political regime. He is sentenced to death, given a last-minute reprieve, but forced to spend 4 years in a Siberian prison camp. Later, he will be forced to spend an additional 6 years in compulsory military service. He eventually makes his way to Europe, begins to publish essays and books. They are not well received. He becomes destitute and desolate, develops a lifelong addiction to gambling, has a failed first marriage, a second marriage, but loses his first child, a daughter, at the age of 3 months to pneumonia. Yet somehow, by the age of 48, he is able to say, through the voice of a protagonist of a new novel, "Beauty will save the world." No one knows for certain exactly what Fyodor Dostoevsky meant by that one line. Philosophers have suggested that he was pointing us towards something ineffable, something profound, something to take us beyond ourselves into the ameliorative, into hope. In his 1970 acceptance speech for the Nobel Prize, Alexander Solzhenitsyn at first expresses skepticism about the line, but then comes to suggest that the line might be, in fact, a kind of prophecy. That when the higher virtues of truth and beauty are compromised by the powers at hand, the ever-surprising sprouts of beauty may, in fact, provide a resilient, generative force. And recent research in the fields of positive psychology, eco-psychology, nature studies, climate, environmental studies have demonstrated the same. Our capacity to attend and savor beauty, both natural beauty and moral beauty, also known as goodness, does in fact provide profound benefit. Beauty awakens us. Think of the first time you saw a shimmer of hummingbirds or butterflies, or the rise and spin and breach of a whale. Here is Pulitzer Prize winner Annie Dillard. "The whole show has been on fire from the word go. I come down to the water to cool my eyes, but everywhere I look I see fire, and that which isn't flint is tinder, and the whole world sparks and flames." Beauty stuns us into presence, into attention. It also heals us. It is a salve, a balm, an infusion. In 2016, Time magazine featured a bunch of articles about the benefits of nature engagement and focused on the work of Japanese forest therapy expert Yoshifumi Miyazaki. Miyazaki had discovered if we spend 40 minutes walking in a cedar forest, our levels of cortisol go down, a hormone known to be related to elevated stress. And growing bodies of research over the last decade have shown that participation in nature has positive benefit relative to self-esteem, loneliness, mood regulation, depression and anxiety, and an increase of the experience of positive emotions, meaning, and kindness. Beauty heals us, it calms us, and it softens our hearts. In 2022, scientists from the field of positive psychology and beauty studies, Nemec and Deisner, conducted a global research project of over 14,000 individuals and discovered that it is this one character trait, our capacity to savor beauty and appreciate it in all of its forms, that more than any other character quality triggers pro-environmental behavior. We protect what we find beautiful. We protect what we love. A few years ago, my beloved and I were having breakfast one spring morning, reading the paper, and then went out to the garden to begin to uncover the beds for the early March planting, and discovered a small nest of baby bunnies in the vegetable bed. Bunnies have one significant purpose in life, that is to have more bunnies, and those bunnies were going to know how to get in the garden and where the vegetables were because these bunnies were going to tell them, so they had to die. They had to die. But in that morning's paper, we had read a story about a gentleman from Austria who had died and left everything he had, somewhere north of 2 million, to the villagers of a small village in France. Lovely. But no one in the village knew who this man was. So the mayor of the town took it upon himself to do some research and discovered that Erich Schwamm from Austria, as a teenager, had been sheltered in that village during World War II, sheltered against the Nazis, he and his parents. He had never forgotten that generosity, and so upon his death, bequeathed everything he had to the descendants of those villagers. You cannot kill a bunny with Eric Schwamm in your heart. Beauty makes us kinder. It awakens us, it softens us, and it focuses our attention. Interestingly enough, also, beauty is generative. In other words, it creates more of the same. So as we witness, the rise of the heron or the field of lilies, or absorb a tale of a moral exemplar like a Gandhi, for example, not only are we awakened and calmed and healed, we are kinder and more generous to those around us. So it creates a positive contagion effect. So it behooves us to actually integrate practices that enable us to elevate this attention to beauty, both natural beauty and moral beauty, because it benefits us and it benefits others. And Lord knows this is needed. Suicidality is now the third leading cause of death for 15 to 29-year-olds, according to the World Health Organization. It is the second leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds in this country, according to the National Alliance for Mental Illness. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime report that harm due to drug use and production are higher than they have ever been around the world. And the Institute for Economics and Peace, a renowned global think tank, published in their 2024 report that primary conditions necessary for major conflict are also higher than they have ever been globally since World War II. We are not well. So what can we do? Here is a practice I suggest for those of us who hang out with kids and teenagers, parents, teachers, mentors. Once a week, for 3 months, ask this question: what goodness have you seen today? Perhaps it's the Monday morning homeroom question or the Sunday evening dinner question. What goodness have you seen today? A few things would begin to happen. First, the lens of their attention would begin to sharpen and broaden. They would see goodness, decency more often, and their brains would literally begin to build a repertoire of stories of goodness. Second, they would come to understand that the value of goodness has significance both at home and in the classroom. And over time, with that brain that is now categorizing stories of decency, they would come to understand that the world is probably a slightly better place than they had imagined. And this could only lend itself to increasing a grounded optimism, a grounded hope, and this is the antidote to despair. Third, not right away, but little by little, they would become more good. They would see it, savor it, and become it. This may sound small as a practice, and it is, and therefore insignificant, but it is not. Consider this. It is only because of the decency of human beings toward one another that we survive. It is only because of our capacity to care for each other, tend each other, reach across divides despite conflict that we endure. In the presence of every natural disaster, someone has shown up to feed someone else. In the presence of every global conflict, someone has shown up to rescue someone else. And in the presence of every act of terror, bombings, shootings, towers falling, someone has shown up to find the survivors, uncover the fallen, and honor them as best they can. We are remarkable in our small acts of care. This is moral beauty. J.R.R. Tolkien once wrote that it is small good deeds that keep the darkness at bay. And Nick Cave, in his recent response to a father writing to him in a state of despair, said the following, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit. Each redemptive act, Valerio, you do on behalf of your son, as small as you like, such as tying his shoes, singing him a song, showing him something you love, tells him that the world and its inhabitants are worth defending. It tells him that the world is worth believing in. And in time, we come to find that this is so. You see, our attention to beauty, our capacity to savor and appreciate beauty brings so much goodness to us, but it also supports the one quality of humanity necessary for our survival, love of humanity. And in this way, beauty may well indeed save the world. A second practice for those of us sorrowful, overwhelmed, fatigued, anxious, worried. Anyone? Once a day, for a month, for 30 days, go out into the world and seek beauty. What is it that you find beautiful today? Once a day, for 30 days. What is it that you find beautiful today? Over time, the lens of your attention would expand to see more of the beauty that is always already there. Here is environmentalist Rachel Carson from the 1970s. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth will find reserves of strength until the end of their lives. There is symbolic as well as actual beauty in the migration of the birds, the ebb and flow of the tides, the folded bud ready for spring. There is something infinitely healing in the assurance that spring will come after winter and dawn after night. During the pandemic, at the end of that first year, I myself found myself in a kind of despair. I couldn't imagine another series of months holding all I was holding on behalf of my family, my clients, the work in the world, and I made a vow that January 1st, 2021, every day for one moment, I would go out into the world and seek beauty. That practice has now lasted years, and here is what is true. I can no longer not see beauty. I would wish for you the same. This is a dark time. Billionaires' profits and infants starving and violence abounding. We are disillusioned and mistrusting. And so it behooves us to actually enact practices that better our lives, that bring a light into the darkness. And it also behooves us to ask some very brave questions. Questions such as, what rules of complacency are you willing to break? How much beauty might the human heart hold? What are we willing to do to benefit those we love and diminish the dark for those yet to come? What rules of complacency are we willing to break? How much beauty might the human heart actually hold? And what are we willing to do to diminish the dark for those we love and those yet to come? When I was preparing for this work in my book, I came across a YouTube video one night from a young woman, Lori Linda Leslie. I can only remember the L of her name. She works at a nature preserve for big animals, not in this country. And she was narrating the tale of a baby boy hippo brought to the preserve as an orphan for survival. There were no other hippos in the preserve, so he was put in the rhino enclosure, which is lovely, except hippos need to spend hours every single day in the water because their skin is actually tender. Rhinos, not so much. And the boy was suffering. His skin had become red and inflamed because he wouldn't go in the water because none of his rhino friends were in the water. And so every day, Lydia or Lyra had to do what she could to, get this boy into the pond. He did not want to be there. Get medicines on his back, cover him as best as possible, help him come into an awareness of his better nature. And every morning she rose at 6 for the first feeding. She probably will never make enough money to buy a home in the United States, probably has to deal all the time with annoying tourists who think they know something about the care of orphan animals, but don't. Hippos are born weighing between 50 and 100 pounds. They eat 80 pounds of grasses and fruit every single day. They defecate all day long, and they are not known to always be in a good mood. So every day, Lauren, we'll call her Lauren, has to measure the hippo-rhino pod mood, navigate the omnipresent piles of crap, and do what she can to get the boy into the water. And she was thrilled when they found a girl hippo to come into the enclosure, hoping that the girl would teach the boy what to do. And beside herself when they began bellowing and grunting and capering together. And sure enough, little by little, the boy followed the girl into the water, just as he needed to, just as he should. This isn't a tale of extraordinary courage. It's a tale of ordinary beauty, of one person choosing one part of the world in which to bring her light on behalf of someone, something, a being different and vulnerable. Once a week for 3 months, what goodness have you seen today? Once a day for 30 days, what beauty do I see? And a third practice, become more of the decency you already possess. Choose this week, this month, this year to become more of the goodness that is already within you, like Dostoevsky seeking wisdom, and Schwam elevating generosity, and Lauren living as if we are all in this together, which we are, which we must be if we are to survive. We have harmed so much, and we are capable of a resilient, generative goodness and a tender care for our world, this world, our only world, in which yet still dawn comes after night and spring after winter. Thank you.